Rinpoche, Yogi,
And let's do the 4 limitless contemplation. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semchen damje dewatang dewe ju tang din ba ju jig dungal tang dungal chichu tang tra wa ju chik dungal mepe dewa tampa tang mindra wa ju chik nearing chak tang ni tang tra we tang num chempo la ne pa ju chik. So at least some of you managed on the to get here. I'm sure we'll get a few stragglers also later. But tonight I'm going to give you part 2 of Padmasambhava advises Yeshe Tsogyal on the dividing line between many matters. So a few of you may not have been there last week, but I think it's really, really important because this terma, a terma is the sacred treasure usually hidden by Yeshe Tsogyal, but by a few of Guru Rinpoche's disciples. And in the terma, it gives you the pith instructions, no matter what we are comparing. So you're looking at the 2 pith instructions. And I was telling you last week that this from the Juniper Ridge are very deep teaching. And I like to, the other 2 books are, you know, the lesser, not lesser, but like refuge and those kind of things are in the other books. But this one has got the really deep teaching, and it's really important. So when Yeshe Tsogyal sealed this terma, this is what she wrote. When I, the girl Tsogyal of a lesser mind, she says of a lesser mind, and I go, may I have her lesser mind, you know, and I please have her lesser mind. When I, the girl Tsogyal of a lesser mind, beseech the lotus-born and near Manakaya master, respectfully with body, speech, and mind, I received this advice, the explanation of the vital points. For people in the future, I wrote them down in script, being unsuitable for dissemination at that time. I hid them in a treasure. May they meet the destined one possessing the karmic links and purify his veils so that he gains the stage of knowledge holder. Knowledge holder is a Vidyadhara or Vajradhara. And that's, she says, when people look at this, if they can get it, then they could become a knowledge holder. And so last week we were talking about, she asked for the dividing line between hate and love, between attachment and aversion, between all the different things that we attach to, she asks. And the most important thing is that the dividing line between all the subjects that she asked about is that actually, when you get to the correct, true view of all matters, everything comes from our minds. And I keep saying to people in the death and dying teachers, it's only your mind. It comes from your mind. And if we look at that, if our minds can't be identified as any one thing, but consist of emptiness, how can whatever is displayed from the mind be solid and existing, so to speak? Yet, lots of things exist, but not what we think them to be, which is so interesting because we think they're solid. We think an enemy is solid. We think a loved person is solid. We think a child belongs to us. We think this about this. We think that about that. And actually, we're all wrong because basically, those are just what our mind perceives. And this teaching, the bottom line is that ego attaches to whatever it sees, and he keeps saying, apply this to your stream of being. if you apply this, your suffering will go. But our habit is so thick, it's almost impossible. And you can butt in, but I just want to say one more thing, and then we'll go straight into all of these things, okay? In boundless vision, Tuku Tondrop or Tuku Tsolo says, mind is not a truly existing entity. Primal awareness, the pure presence of mind, does not go beyond its primordial essence, which is free from grasper and grasped duality. How do we go past? How do we go to freedom? But then he says the essential nature, however, illuminates ceaselessly. So even though it's empty, it illuminates, things come into being, And then we think, oh, I like that. Oh, I want that. Oh, I don't like that. So that's what happens. So it still ceases, it illuminates ceaselessly. But we have got to know the nature of what those illuminations are. That's what Guru Rinpoche is actually giving to us. It's really important. We have to know that nature. And he says, those babes, I love when he says those babes who do not know the unborn nature of the mind wander in samsara. So just to do one little other thing, he asks the question, well, how do appearances arise? So he says here, pure perception, when you see it as it really is, arises contingent upon the realization of the nature of mind and the ability to remain in that realization. So if you know that this is your nature of mind and that whatever it has produced there is not solid, not anything, then you are out of samsara. But if you don't, he says, impure perception arises contingent upon a failure to realize the nature of mind and the inability to remain in the realized state. And that's what Guru Rinpoche is trying to say. It's so important, because if we don't know this, if the mind is emptiness and the mind is actually illuminating ceaselessly, then it's absolutely ridiculous to think of the fact that we are attaching and averse, and that's what he's saying in the dividing line. He's saying, but both of them come from mind. So time to see it. So I've got two little stories for you. The first one goes, oh, sorry, that's not the first one. The first one goes, once there was a monkey king who looked down the walls of a cannon and saw the bright moon reflected on the water. Oh, what a beautiful jewel. I must have it, he thought. When he told this to the other monkeys, they all said it would be very hard to obtain. But the monkey king said, I have an idea. One monkey will hold on to a tree and everyone else will form a line, each one holding tightly to the tail of the monkey in front. Then we can lower our monkey chain right down to the water, and the last one will be able to reach the jewel. So 500 monkeys dangled one by one down to the water, but the weight of all the monkeys was too much for the one holding onto the tree, and all 500 monkeys fell in the water and drowned. Okay, shame. Now, if you can laugh about it because they're monkeys, don't, because that's what we do. We're also pursuing all the jewels of the world and all the things of the world. And truly, 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 it's an illusion, a delusion, whatever it is. And we've got to stop doing that. And the second story I've got is Nasruddin was eating a poor man's diet of chickpeas and bread. His neighbor, who also claimed to be a wise man, was living in a grand house and dining on sumptuous meals provided by the emperor himself. His neighbor told Nasruddin, if only you would learn to flatter the emperor, and be subservient like I do, you would not have to live on chickpeas and bread. Nasruddin replied, and if only you would learn to live on chickpeas and bread like I do, you would not have to flatter and live subservient to the emperor. Very important story as well, because what do we do in our lives? How do we butter people up because they're going to give us what we want, even though sometimes we know it's really not a great idea? So does anyone want to say anything? And I'm going to go straight on to these vital, it's called the cycle of vital points. But what I am going to do is, this gas heater is so hot, I'm actually sweating. I'm going to just switch it off if nobody minds. I'm actually going to switch it off because it is too hot, but my poor dogs are going to freeze. Sorry. Anyone want to say anything about what I'm saying? How difficult is it with our habits to actually, how difficult is it with all our habits to actually change how we view things? How difficult is that? Sorry, everyone, it's just too hot with that heat on. Anyone, no one talking to me? Am I talking a monologue to lots of people who can't even put their cameras on? Okay. Anyone want to say anything, or you want to go straight on to all the tea? Okay. B, anything? Oi, your lights have just...
That's okay, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, some of the things, when I'm thinking about, what Guru Rinpoche is saying, the one thing that I'm never really able to figure out is, okay, yes, we have our karma and we have collective karma, etc., but to what extent are we all contributing to the karma? I mean, yes, I have my own karma, but given that everything that's happening now, all the wars, all the problems in South Africa, all the other issues that might be going on my mind, but to what extent is it my mind and somebody else's mind and millions of other people's, billions of other beings, whatever it, how does that work interdependently? In other words,
you see, it's because it's called the collective mind. Okay, so in other words, when we it's not only when we have relative karma, but like, for instance, all of you with me, we connect because somewhere we've got a connection, from the lineage and from whatever's happened to us. So we are connected in a group. There's also the group karma. We in South Africa are really connected in a group karma. We had a group karma before. So there's also the collective mind, not only the individual mind. But what I'm really trying to say is that if we could get people to actually understand that none of this is solid. I said to a girl today, she said to me, but I get so anxious, but I get so absolutely, I get so hysterical about things and all of that. And I said to her, why do you do that? Why don't you have confidence in the fact that you have this awakened mind that is able to see things? But the habitual thing is we're too strongly in the habitual life. We can't get out of it. And then collectively, if you just look on the television, what do people actually put there, that's collective, that influences us to see things in this ridiculous way? Today on television, what was her name? Martha Stewart. She was an amazing woman. Do you know they had her on the front cover of Vogue magazine in a bathing costume? Okay. In a bathing costume, she's 91. Okay. So she's posing in a bathing costume, and I'm going like, I wonder why you would want to do this. Why would you want to pose in a bathing costume for the whole world to see? I mean, just ponder that. such an interesting thing, because look, she was an amazing woman. She did some amazing things, but I mean, they're just showing you, look, she's probably had every Botox thing that there is in the whole world, you know, and she looks fantastic for 91. She doesn't look like an old woman for sure. But the point of the matter is, where are our values? And at 91, what would you like to be doing? I wouldn't like to be posing, even if I had the most beautiful body, I wouldn't like to be posing on a magazine cover. I'd rather be using wisdom, but that's how our culture is. Then they showed Jane Fonda. She's also changed her whole thing. And I thought when I saw her, but Jane, I used to love your gym. I used to do her gym with her every day. And now I can't even recognize her face. Is so. That's what it is, Fee. We living with the wrong perception. We're living in a duality, in a place where we're looking for the jewel in the water. Sorry, Viam, you wanted to say something.
Exactly what you were saying this, but it just made me think that we need to, like, it's just the consistency in practicing, you know, to cultivate that mind that's steady, that can become steady, you know. Otherwise, all these things in the world it sways us so much, our emotions, you know, and I think that's a big thing in today. Like this, like it doesn't matter what country it is. Yeah, there's lots in South Africa. I mean, if I look at America and Europe, there's also lots of things. You know, you can, if you're there, you can fix such. Oh, this is such a problem. Oh, this is such a this and this and this. So, like for me, like I don't even, I don't look at the news at all. Like I haven't done for years. I don't buy the paper. I don't watch the news. But it works for me, you know. But also this thing of I'm going through a teaching that my teacher gave me, and something that's like such struck me so much is like all these conceptions. Like we had this habit that you're talking about, that we want to find happiness outside of us the whole time, you know. It's like the whole time, and that we never find it there. But the more we go there, it's like the conceptions increase. He explains it obviously like very well, but it's like the more you think you're going to get it there, the stronger the pull comes for that, you know.
Yeah.
And the more thoughts come, the more thoughts, you know, the more the concepts, and then we try to escape from that with whatever, you know, it comes as just a negative cycle almost. Like,
you know what you're describing cognitive dissonance. That is, the nearer you get to the goal, the more real it actually becomes, you know, the nearer you get. But if you went on another goal, it would be so different. And you know, James Lowe in his book, Being Guru Rinpoche, he gives this wonderful example. It's so relevant to what you're saying. He says, when you meet someone you haven't met before, you ask things like, where are you from? What do you do? You know, you ask them, where's your house? Where do you live? You know, what work do you do, etc. He says, we get to know something about that person. And he says, you may be together with someone for years and not really know them. But he says, a guru, now just listen to this different state of mind. A guru doesn't usually ask you questions about your life. We are talking about a different level of experience, not constructed out of stories, historical events, feelings, etc. He says sometimes good guru can sound quite rude to you because they're not confirming the assumptions that you have about yourself. And if we remain with our stories, maybe we don't see anything new. We simply add on a new kind of story. He says, so the guru's task is to try and open up something new, a new kind of experience. The same guru figure will behave in different ways to different people. They may appear unreliable, and they may change their minds about things, and they can have the trickster role. Now he gives his guru, who's a crazy guy, and he gives this example that his guru was invited to this huge, I don't know where it was, but to this huge, big university institute to give a talk. Now, there were a whole stack of speakers that were going to talk, okay? And so when it was his chance to talk, this crazy guy, he got up and he started talking about the weather and about how people got here and what about their journey. And he started talking all these mundane rubbish. So these very intellectual people in the audience started to go like, what's he doing? What's he doing? So half of them walked out of the lecture. And when there were 20 people left in this whole auditorium, then he started to teach the Dharma. Now, isn't that interesting? Because I found that so fascinating, because basically he said, if people are not right, there's nothing to be done with them. It's a waste of time if people aren't ready. So obviously he looked at this intellectual audience and he thought, I'm not going to give the beautiful Dharma to them because none of them are going to like it or want it. So he just spoke mundane rubbish until everybody left except 20 people. And then he fed them very deep Dharma. Now, isn't that a most interesting story? But the poor organizers, can you imagine them? They'd invited him, and can you imagine the embarrassment that people said, who's this that you invited? What did you invite him for, you know? I mean, it's hilarious, because haven't we got to get to know something different about ourselves? And, you know, Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche, when he was teaching on Vajrayana, he said in the audience, has anyone got a chocolate? So someone came up and gave him a chocolate. So he put the chocolate in his mouth, and then he went, and he took some chocolate on his finger, and he took his teacup and he wiped it full of chocolate. So there was a dirty brown mark. He said, now, how many of you said, I'm not worried about this dirty chocolate mark on the cup because someone can just wash it. He said, I'm not worried about it. He said, I have confidence in the fact that this cup is essentially clean. And if you put it under water and soap, you'll get it all clean again. He says, but you don't have any confidence that all your rubbish is not who you really are. You don't have the confidence that when you clean it, there will be a Buddha nature. Such a wonderful example, don't you think? And he said, we don't have the confidence, and it's true, because never in all the years that I've been helping and counseling people, Jackie, come here, boy, come. Jackie, shame, he's got his blanket here and Joss isn't here, so he doesn't know, and he's sitting there shivering. Come here, Jackie, come. Come here, boy, come here. Come here where I've got the blanket, come. Jack, okay, do it your way. Go on. Then there you go. Put it there. God, I don't know. So I think it's a really interesting thing that to think that we don't have the confidence. And I find that what I'm doing with people all the time, I'm saying to people the whole time, but why haven't you got any confidence that there's another part of you that is really, really, really clean, that doesn't have the anxiety, that doesn't have all the stuff that you are worried about? Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, so let's look at a couple of these things in the vital points, because it's fascinating. This whole thing is fascinating. And I want to look at some of these. So Lady Tsogyal asked the lotus-born master, oh, we're getting better and better as the night goes by. I know, because the load shedding's coming off now. Okay, Lady Tsogyal asked the lotus-born master, what is the dividing line between this shore, okay, this shore and the other shore. Okay. The master replied, this shore refers to samsaric phenomena. The other shore refers to that which is beyond samsara. When you apply this experientially in your own stream of being, look into the normal thinking mind belonging to this shore, and thereby see that it is utterly insubstantial, a cognizance that cannot be apprehended. This is known as arriving at the other shore, and is the vital point of dissolving this shore into arriving at the other shore. Tsogyal, this advice of utmost importance I give to you. Now think about that. That's what we're talking about. He says, if you look at your own life, if you look into your normal thinking mind, the way you see things in the world, if you see the normal thinking mind belongs to this shore, and if you see that it's not substantial, it's insubstantial, then you arrive at the other shore. You don't have to travel there. You just arrive there because you know. Because the other thing we were doing is last week, what is the difference between knowing and unknowing? And if you are unknowing and you don't know you are unknowing, just put this, mute everyone. If you are unknowing that you are unknowing, if you don't know that you are unknowing, then how do you change? And if you listen to his advice, it's absolutely amazing. It's amazing because it tells you everything that you need to know. Then he goes, she asks him, what is the dividing line between dullness and wakefulness? Now, what would you do if I said to you all, oh, your minds are so dull? You'd go, geez, she's insulting us. You know, how dare she say that my mind is dull? You know what? This is what he says. Dullness is failing to comprehend anything because of a dense mental veil. Wakefulness is to vividly see the original natural state as it is. Same thing. And he says, when applying this experientially in your stream of being, look into this unknowing, uncomprehending mind itself without questioning whether mind understands or not, and thereby see that it doesn't consist of any identity whatsoever, but is lucid and unobscured. This is the vital point of naturally dissolving dullness. Tsogyal, this advice of utmost importance I give you. You know, he keeps saying, it's so important. But Viam, when are you composing a song about this? When are you going to make it so popular on general TV that people, you don't look at the news, but I would love to see someone who was singing about unknowing and knowing, open your mind, wake up, get to see things as they really are. How dick are we? Tell me, truly. We're living with such suffering, and we can't see the other shore right there in front of our very eyes. You're all very quiet. I'm doing a lot of talking, and also yesterday I said, I'm getting tired of talking and none of you are speaking back. And then they said, no.
I've got something to say. So I have to keep reminding myself that whenever I get start fixating or worried or worried about death or illness or whatever it is, I have to keep reminding myself to
Right.
look at the other shore. And I have to keep doing that all the time. You know, the amount of times that I think a day, oh, my cancer's back, then I'm like, well, maybe not, you know. And I have to keep doing that.
Who is the cancer? And what is the cancer?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it maybe a means to take you to the other shore?
Yeah.
You know, it's the most amazing thing, because it's taken me all these years, Viam, to actually just begin. And I'm only at the beginning, very ignorant, but at the beginning of just watching my eyes open. And I sit in my shrine room and I ponder with Guru Rinpoche. I tell him all sorts of things that I'm pondering about, you know. But how do we get to see things differently? How do we get to believe that there's another part? The whole part of you is really, I mean, you are part of the whole part of you, but the whole part of you is there to actually make you see things in a completely different way. How are we going to get this world out of the habit? Viam, I think you've got to write a whole lot of songs, and I think you've got to produce them, and you've got to teach the Dharma with them. Really. And I'm very happy when you do it, to stand by your side, and then if people ask you things, I'm happy to answer. You'll sing and I'll answer. How are we going to get people to change their habit? Fee, how are we going to get people to change the collective consciousness? You've just got to listen.
I wish I knew now, honestly, because I mean, carry on.
No, you go on.
Yes, I mean, it is something that's on my mind a lot. I mean, look, it starts with us, ourselves, obviously. It starts with us. But you say sometimes it is frustrating when you see people killing each other, you know, doing unpleasant things to each other, and you can't understand why they want to make people suffer, because in the long run they're suffering themselves. But it's such a tangled web. And one thing that occurs to me though is one has to be careful. I mean, I've caught myself doing this a few times in the last few months, is where you almost want to give up on yourself because you see that habit coming back and back and back and back again, and then you suddenly got to realize that the ego is very tricky and it's coming back around the other way to try and undermine that. You know, you got to just regard it as, okay, it happened. Don't look at it positively, negatively, whatever it might. But there's that little tricky bit that comes around the back, you know, and then starts going down the negative path. But that's one thing I've, you know, learned in the last few months or so.
It's actually unbelievable. And when you read this treasure from Juniper Ridge, you just listen. I did Hate and Love last week. I won't do it again. You can get it on YouTube. But Lady Tsogyal asked the Lotus Born, what is the difference between desire and delight? How interesting, between desire and delight. The master replied, desire is to be attached to and yearn for a certain thing. Delight is when joy is produced in the mind. When you apply this experientially to your stream of being, look into the mind that feels desire and see the delight when beholding an attractive piece, object, or piece of property. That's just an experience of pleasure. Desire and delight are both the mind. Since this mind does not consist of anything whatsoever, that's the vital point of naturally dissolving desire and delight. Tsogyal, this advice of utmost importance I give to you. What's he saying? What's he saying here? Is it bad to delight in something? Well, it depends. You know, if you just look at children going on a holiday, And when it's time, maybe they have a delightful experience on their holiday. Then when it's time to go home, I remember saying to my parents, can't we just stay one more day? You know, can't we just have one more day here, you know, to stay? Because basically, we can't take a delight. And just somebody was saying to me that when they have a chocolate, you know, they can't take a little piece of chocolate, eat it, delight in it, and that's it. Fold it up and put it away. Why? Because as soon as you have a taste of that delicious chocolate, you think, I just want a little more. I just want a little more. Okay? We can't take delight and then just enjoy something and let it go. We always want more, or we want to repeat an experience. If we have a lovely experience, sometimes I have a beautiful experience in my meditation from time to time. And then I always want to have that experience again. You know, that's what desire and delight, when you look at them, both of them are from the mind. Why can't you delight in something at the moment and then just let it be? It's such an interesting thing. It's such an interesting thing. We must do a meditation, but I just want to do, what is the dividing line between pain and pleasure? The master replied, pain is uneasiness of mind, while pleasure is mental ease. When applying this experientially, always applying it to your stream of being, look into the painful state of uneasiness and see that it does not exist of any concrete substance, but rather is mind. Mind is empty, and this empty quality is a state of ease. This is the vital point of changing pain to ease. Tsogyal, this advice of utmost importance I give to you. Now, I really remember in the old days, I think I told you this experience, but it's important to say it here. I was sitting at Samiling with some very important master, you know, giving us this meditation. I can't even remember who or what. But all I know is that I had been sitting in this position for about 1.5 hours. Okay. And I thought, my knees are going to burst with pain. You know, I have got to stand up, or I've got to stretch my legs. Now, if that happened to me now, I would simply take my legs right there and stretch them up in the shrine room. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Or I would just get up and walk out of the room. I wouldn't care less. But what was interesting was I said to myself, I need to get past this pain. I need to sit here and I need to go to the other shore past this pain. And I did. I've never done it again, but I did it in that. It might have been the atmosphere in the room. But I know that if you see the Karmapa when he was dying, the 16th Karmapa, the doctors kept saying, you need painkillers. What you're going through is unbelievable. You really need painkillers. He said, no, I don't. Why? Because he could take his mind and see that it is just the interpretation of pain that gives you the pain. But actually, the pain is mind. So if you change your mind, you change the pain. So when I go always to Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, I say, how are you feeling? He says, if my mind is good, very firmly, if my mind is good, then I'm okay. Even when he's been nearly half dying, and he's done that a number of times. What does that tell you? What part of our mind are we not using? Why are we living in this real suffering mind? And why, when we've got pleasure again, do we grasp onto it and we can't get enough of it? You're all nodding. Are you ready to write your songs, Biam?
I'll schedule a meeting with you, then we get to work.
Definitely. I'll write off the song, you sing it and make the music. It's really important. Dami, tell me what you feel about this. So interesting, you know.
Oh, what I feel. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, I've been I experienced that recently. I've been having back pains and I go to a chiropractor. And like last week, I kind of stopped thinking about it because I had bigger issues, if we put it that way. So my mind was on another. It's that back pain. I needed to see a chiropractor almost every week. Completely gone. It's the mind. I took the mind away because I was sort of doing something else. Another issue. I mean, it's life, I guess. There's always something to worry about. But I do agree, it's the mind. I mean, empty. If you can bring or be in that empty mind, nothing really matters.
I know, but people are scared. They're scared to be in that empty mind because we need something. Because I watch people, you know, when people retire, when people get older, when people lose their jobs, they are absolutely frantic. I watch people when their children grow up and leave home and they've got that empty feeling. People can't stay with themselves. We can't stay with ourselves because we haven't connected with who we really are. And isn't it time that we did? Listen to what he's saying. He says, she asks him, what's the dividing line between the mind of Buddhas and the mind of sentient beings? And he says, the Buddha mind never moves from the essential nature, while the sentient being's mind is in movement. When applying this experientially, let the sentient being's mind with its thought movements be uncontrived, its basis not composed of any identity whatsoever. That is the original natural mind, the state of great self-existence, and is known as remaining in the Buddha mind. This is the vital point of dissolving a sentient being's mind into the Buddha mind. Tsogyal, this advice of utmost importance I give you. How do we dissolve this human mind with all its different habits into the Buddha mind, the awakened mind? How? I mean, as one or two of you said, with lots and lots of practice, you suddenly start to see things. But you know, I think to myself, I've never seen things the way I'm seeing things getting older. Like, I'm so glad I'm getting older. I seem to be so much wiser about things than I was before. It's such an interesting thing, you know, because when you really look at it, when you're stuck, when you've got pain in your back, and then another bigger issue comes and you forget about the pain, don't you realize that the mind, it's mind over matter? It really is mind over matter. And if we can see that and change, I know it takes a long time. I know, Fiona, it's a really, really, really difficult process. But surely, if all of us are going to come back again for another lifetime, we're just going to be in the Buddha mind? Surely.
Melanie?
Yes, Dam.
But when things get really difficult for us human beings,
yes.
if one tries to sit and try to find that empty mind or true nature, Buddha nature,
right,
sometimes it can even sort of get harder, almost like going crazy. I don't know how to explain. I've been having not tough time, but as I said, we moved the house again. I'm alone all over again. Haven't worked for a few months. Same old story. Actually, I think it's repetitive karmic imprint, same habit, same pattern.
Yes, same.
So when doesn't
same
matter.
Thing, not looking at your own deep nature, and so every time they've got to pull the carpet out from under your feet and hit you again, and then you got to get it again.
For me, it's so the frequency is so like very repetitive within short period of time. They are not big issues, but when now I'm in a new place, sorry to go on about personal things. I'm trying to explain how I've been trying to manage even. So we moved the place. Alex is back in Harare, my husband, and Tsogyal started boarding school. I don't know anyone again here, and I was sick. After 1 week, we moved in here. They've gone. I was so sick in bed with bronchitis. Knew no one. Didn't know doctor. Anyway, I managed, but I thought, oh my goodness, I went through COVID like that, the COVID period, and again and again. And I'm like, what is this life trying to show me?
What is the universe showing you? I mean, exactly what I'm talking about tonight is what the universe is showing you. The universe is showing you we are not going to give you a comfortable life until you are operating from your Buddha nature. So we're going to throw you out alone, not once, 50 times. Until
so many times. Like now, 3 months. Okay. I mean, I see my son and my husband time to time, but majority weekdays I'm all alone, and I'm thinking sometimes like I don't think I'm going crazy, but I can understand how people can go crazy.
No, they can't go crazy. Only when we are used to the habit that we need people around us. That's what the masters do when they go into these years and years of retreat. They're actually showing you to be alone, to be with your awakened mind, to really move through. And the thing is, why don't we get it? When will we get it? When will we get it? You know, it's such an interesting thing because life is a cycle. I look at life and I think to myself, I go back to my household when I had 4 children and all their boyfriends and girlfriends and millions of people around the house and a noise and this whole horde to feed and my own stuff, my own pathway, my own everything. And then one day, it all dissolves. And then you have to go to another place. Now, why don't we get that Buddha mind takes you through all these experiences and brings you out again, and you've got to look at your own self all over again. It's so important wherever you are, Mart. When you went there, you had yourself. You have to look at your mind. how your life is just a projection of your mind. So let's do more, because then I'll leave this. But he asks, what is the dividing line between good and harmful actions? What is the dividing line between an enemy and one's child? And basically he says, an enemy is someone who's seen as adversarial, while one's child is someone treasured with affection. Look into your stream of being. Look to your right and see the enemy. Look to your left and see your child. Look into your mind and see that this mind that sees someone as an enemy is also the same mind that regards someone as a beloved child. Look into this dualistic perception and see that it consists of neither basis nor concrete substance. The insubstantiality itself is the vital point of naturally dissolving the notion of enemy. Tsogyal, this advice of utmost importance I give to you. Then he goes on, she goes, what's the dividing line between valuable and worthless? And what's the dividing line between the perceiver and the perceived? And what's the dividing line between accepting and rejecting? Do you want that one? It's a very interesting one, because he says, accepting is to mentally embrace without rejection. Rejection is to mentally discard. Now think of this, everybody. Think of the people that come in front of you and how you have opinions. You reject some, you accept some. Just think about this. I mean, it's all your own mind. He says, when you experience this in your stream of being, acknowledge that samsara suffering is a dualistic mind. Understand its futility and be free from the urge of worldly pursuits. By turning your mind away from samsara, you are freed into not needing anything whatsoever. Imagine you're at a stage where I can tell you completely and totally that Lama Yeshe Rinpoche doesn't need anything whatsoever. I promise you, if you give him something, this is very nice. If you give him a beautiful meal, it's very nice. Thank you. He doesn't need it. If you don't give it to him, it's fine. If you give it to him, it's fine. When are we going to get that, to realize the absence of something to accept or reject is the vital point of natural dissolving, accepting, and rejecting. Tsogyal, this advice of utmost importance I give to you. And she asks, what's the dividing line between thinking and non-thinking? What's the dividing line between the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom as the effect? What's the dividing line between shamatha and vipassana? Do you want to hear that one? He said very quickly, and then let's do a meditation. But he says, shamatha is when thought activity totally subsides and your attention remains unmoving. Vipassana is when you vividly see the nature of Dhammata all at once. When applying this experientially in your stream of being, after you've settled into Dhammata's nature of equality, you vividly experience emptiness, the nature of things, in whatever you see and whatever you think. This is called the vital point of realizing non-dual shamatha and vipassana. Tsogyal, this advice of utmost importance I give to you. So what he's saying really there is that when you calm the body and you look into it, okay, you vividly experience that everything is emptiness, full of potential, full of illumination, but it all dissolves back. So why clutch? Why think? Why hang on to your thoughts all the time? I mean, it makes such sense to my being. He goes on and on, space and wakefulness and composure and post-meditation. She asks and asks the view and the viewer, the meditation and the meditator, the conduct and the application, the fruition. But basically, it's really all the same. It's really all saying to you, the bottom line is that if you look deeply into the mind, you find that the mind has no substance. It can illuminate, there can be thoughts, there can be things you like and things you don't like, but it's all the same. And it all dissolves. So why get so uptight about everything? It's so profound. You ponder it. And then Wiem's going to sing us the song next week that he's compiling, between knowing and unknowing. Load shedding in any minute. Okay, Damika, I mean, tonight I surrender. You know, so then you look at it and you say, load shedding. So what should my mind do? Should my mind get upset because people are texting me and people are saying, I'm getting load shedding, I won't be able to be there any longer. So how do I look at it? I think she's gone. I look at it and I say, it is what it is. And what must I do? Just give the best you can of the Dharma and don't attach. What else must I do? Lindiwe, you haven't said a word, and I'm happy to see you here tonight. And you know what? Any of you that are in your pajamas, I said last week, I'm so happy to see you in your pajamas. It means you're applying your beautiful life, your Buddha life into your bed at night. So I'm happy to see you in your pajamas. Maybe I'll rock up in pajamas one night. Anyway, Lindiwe, do you want to say anything, Lind? Okay, let's just do a little meditation. And just let's digest this a bit. And then I'll leave it, we'll go on to another subject next week. So let's just come to this moment. What I want you to do is you breathe in and out. Is just feel the beautiful privilege of knowing and receiving these magnificent teachings from Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche, when he gives the teaching, and Yeshe Tsogyal has perfect memory, she writes down every single word. And when some of you might think, why does he repeat some of the things so many times? It's because he really wants to make the point to help sentient beings with their suffering. It's really, really important that all of us understand this so clearly. And that what he's trying to say is, open the mind and see it has this large spaciousness, huge, blue, spacious, Buddha awakened mind. And there's space for everything here. Your pain, your suffering, your joys, your regrets, your beautiful deeds, your actions. There's space for it all. And if we don't intervene with that human mind, if we don't analyze, pick it up as something solid, attach to it, neurotically fixate on it, want it to be a particular way, reject it on the other hand, if we just let it be, we breathe in and we breathe out, and we just let everything be. It is what it is. And for each of us, We are in the perfect place at the perfect time. No matter how hard the difficulties are, no matter if you're lonely, no matter if you're too busy, no matter what the circumstances are, those are the perfect circumstances for you. And they're all empty. Does it mean they don't exist? No. We feel the pain. We feel the joy. We feel the desire. We feel the aversion. We feel the rejection. We feel all of those things, but we're not attached. Just give the beautiful spaciousness for everything to exist just as it is. Yeshe. Just leave it all to exist just as it is. So you breathe in and you breathe out. You breathe in and you breathe out. And you just allow everything to be as it is, perfect in the moment, right now. And this now will be gone in another second. So just be with it right now, with everything that you need, and everything that you are. Perfect, empty, spacious. Samsara circling is to spin from one place to another. Nirvana is to have cut through the circling. When we see that the basic state of mind is a self-existence that never arises and is untainted by the flaws of everything in material world. When you see this, there is no place to circle. Samsara being cleared, purified from the beginning, is called nirvana. This important point I give to you, Padmasambhava to Yeshe Tsogyal. And we need to live in it, breathing in. The past is gone, the future hasn't been made, and this very moment is going to change in a second from now. So no more grasping, no more clutching, just being present, awake, emptiness, spaciousness, surrender. In the mental doing, in the mental being. It's a beautiful teaching to go to sleep on. And I hope you got something out of it. You can all read it in Juniper Ridge if you get the book. It's beautiful. There's so many chapters that are really very, very special. It's really a book worth having, that with all the termas in. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what it's like. And then once you've got an idea, you could just apply it to absolutely everything in your life. So let's dedicate thee. And let's dedicate for all the suffering beings who see their suffering as tangible. I've been watching refugee camps, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, wars, killing, absolutely everything. For all those sentient beings, we dedicate these prayers. May they be able to get something out of Padmasambhava's teaching and what he gave to this planet. And through this merit, may we achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, which never were there, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Sonam diye tamche zipane topne nipe dranam pamshene jegana jibala dropaye sipe sole doa do warsho.